Welcome to The Great Hack. I call it The Great Hack because I use a really data-driven approach when it comes to LinkedIn ads. I want to share with you guys today, and a little bit about me to begin with. So I'm James, I'm a campaign marketing executive here at Cognism. And pretty much the story I want to tell today is that back in June, the CMO Alice came to me and said, James, we want to build out a new enterprise lead gen engine using LinkedIn. Can you do this? And I went, sure, okay, we'll see how it goes. Now, it worked. So I've been working on this since June, and optimizing all my ads, sort of like building what I've learned, taking all the data from both ads that went well and ads that didn't go well to get to this point where we now have ads running under a $10 cost per lead. It wasn't easy, but we did it. So I'm going to, later on, I'll show you these three ads and how I came up with them, how I tweaked them, how we came about them. But first, some theory. So we'll get into practical stuff later, but you can see here, I'm going to start off with what you'll need and sort of breaking down how you set up these campaigns, how you have this data-driven approach, then look at the adverts themselves, and then finally at the end, I'll tell you exactly what you need to do straight after watching this. What you get. So, to begin with, what you'll need. So you might look at this list here and think, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. These are all the things I usually go into ads thinking, I need some content, I need some creatives, a bit of divine intervention never hurts, but I'm going to focus on two things, budget and buy-in. So when it comes to launching a new market especially, or if you want to optimize your ads, you're going to need budget, that's just the simple truth, but also you're going to need buy-in. So this is why I want Alice, the CMO, to tune out, because you control the narrative here. When you're given some budget, they want to see returns in it. They want to see that it's being used creatively and effectively and that it impacts revenue. It won't always impact revenue. Again, Alice, stop listening. I've had ads that have performed really badly, but Alice doesn't want to hear that. What Alice wants to see are the good ads and what we've learned from the bad ads. So I will report to Alice. I won't show her every single ad. I'll show her the best ads because everyone wants to see those low cost per leads. But I'll also say, yeah, we had some ads that didn't run well, so now we know not to use this messaging. Now we know this call to action doesn't work. Now we know how to experiment further in the future. And through that, I get trust from Alice that she'll then go, here's more budget next month. Everyone's happy. So, when you got the buy-in, you got the budget, then you want to build your campaign. What does a campaign look like? Here's roughly what your campaign will look like to get these $10 enterprise content leads. So, you've got your always-on content ads. You've got a bit of downloadable content gated on LinkedIn that is tailored and optimized to your ICP. That's your ideal customer profile. So you have your audience. Let's say you want to reach out to marketers in Expo. You want to target their interests, build content around it, and then run content ads on LinkedIn. I would always recommend using LinkedIn lead gen forms. Why? Because they're optimized to convert at a lower cost per lead and reduce friction across the journey. I'll get onto this more later. But then finally, what you're going to want to do is make sure that this content is then posted on your site, because there's a bunch of stuff you can do there, and make sure the sales also has specific follow-up cadences. But we're already a few minutes in and I've only got half an hour. So that last point, I'm not going to go into detail now. If you want to hear more about that, go to our Cognism blog, cognism.com. So to get into the first two parts, lead generation is our main objective. You want to convert more leads at a lower cost. How do you do that? As I mentioned, you want to have these lead gen forms on LinkedIn, which are pre-filled for this frictionless journey. So if you think about what I like to call an action economy on LinkedIn, when someone looks at your ad, if they even look at your ad, every click that you get from them is a blessing. You want to make sure that every click that they do is optimized and easy for them. So when you're clicking on it, it's not, okay, I click on the ad and I go to your site and then I fill out each field in this form and then I click submit and then I get the content. Instead, LinkedIn fills all this out, pre-filled data. It does have some weaknesses. For example, LinkedIn will usually have a personal email address linked, but generally you'll get more leads at a low cost per lead through using the lead gen forms. The proof is in the pudding here that when LinkedIn launched this as a pilot, 90% of customers saw a lower cost per lead using lead gen forms. So I'd always recommend using it. But again, test and experiment yourself, see how it works. So once you've got your objective, you're then building your audiences. Now I'm going to spend a lot of time on this slide. This is a very important slide. So if you've been on LinkedIn, you know that audiences are everything when you're doing ads. You want to optimize your targeting across each segment, and when I'm talking about segments, that means look at your audience and how does it fit neatly. So for example, at Cognism, we target sales and marketing, and then we often break that down by industry or by another interest they might have. So to get into the nitty-gritty of it, First of all, with job titles. So if you're running LinkedIn ads, you might already be targeting, let's say, your CMOs, your head of marketing or whatever. But you really want to get into the nitty-gritty with these job titles, especially because LinkedIn is always updating their job titles. So I find every month there's always a new job title LinkedIn's introduced where they've gone, 500 people this month have this job title which is related to CMO. So if you introduce that and update your job titles every month, you're much more likely to get those leaders within your targeting. At the same time, make sure you're talking to sales. So see how your content is converting in the funnel and talk to sales. For example, at Cognism, we kept hearing that in Europe, account executives would download our stuff, go into the funnel, but they wouldn't lead to anywhere. So then we exclude those account executives from our targeting. We still get good leads, but then when they go to sales, they don't waste their time with a bad job. Then we move into industries. So I would always recommend when you're building out a campaign to first look at your ICP. Again, that's your ideal customer profile. You want to make sure that the industries you have got in your targeting are specific, are detailed, are relevant. Otherwise, you're going to be spending money on leads that aren't going to convert later in the funnel. You also might want to consider industry-specific campaigns. So for example, at Cognism, we are really popular in the computer software space, so of course we're then going to run an industry targeting computer software. And when I say targeting them, I mean not only do we put that targeting, but then follow up with content that is specifically related to them, or copy that is specifically related to them. Now, one thing you might find in LinkedIn is audience expansion. So it will go, hey, what if you could improve your audience by 25% just by clicking this one button? Don't do that. Please don't do that. In all my tests, I found the LinkedIn audience network is a bit poor. It sometimes will relate one job title to another, and it will go, oh, you're interested in sales directors? Well, here, I find that, SDRs are similar. It just doesn't work as well as you want. So I'd always avoid using that network. But again, if you don't believe me, test it yourself. Finally, company lists. So this is a really underused part of audiences when it comes to LinkedIn. You can upload lists, whether that's maybe your closed lost ops, so that's a list of your customers, a list of your prospects that haven't converted into a customer. You can then retarget them with content through LinkedIn. Alternatively, you can also get really detailed contact lists from a provider and upload them. So for example, if you have an account list of your ideal companies, you could then get the contact data for them, upload them straight into LinkedIn, and make sure that every one of those people is seeing ads. If you then convert them, those are ideal people going straight into your funnel who know who you are now. It's brilliant. Now, as I said, I'm spending a while on this slide because there are two main options when you come to your targeting audiences. There's the conventional targeting. So this is option A here. It's mainly top of the funnel. Your audience size here would range between 50 and 100K depending on your company size, depending on your ideal market. I would never recommend going over 100K because when it comes to your frequency on LinkedIn, that's how often the same person is seeing your ads. If you go over 100K in audience size, your frequency then goes down. You really want the same person to be seeing your ads as much as possible, so make sure to keep your audience size smaller than 100K, generally speaking. You, of course, will then have wide industry targeting within this conventional targeting, and you generally group by your function or your seniority, and this is always just your 100% gated email content. You then, more recently, have the option to do target accounts. So this can be across the funnel, so tofu, mofu, and bofu, and generally smaller audiences, so anywhere from 20K to 50K in size. Now, this may seem a bit detrimental because it might seem more expensive at first, but again, if you have really hyper-detailed contact lists, this will make sure that you're only reaching out to people that are valuable to you, and generally they're the most relevant to you as well, so you'll see a possible lead balance out. You can use a hybrid model here of both, and you can also introduce ungated content here, but because we're talking about lead gen, we're going to focus more on gated moving forward. That was a lot there. So now we're going to go on to everyone's fun topic, budgets. When it comes to your budgeting, obviously you want to maximize what money you're spending in the best way possible. I would always recommend at least a $15 daily spend per campaign on LinkedIn. Now you can spend less, but I just find it optimizes best if you spend at least $15. Across ours, we'll generally spend anywhere from $20 to $40 on a daily spend. It depends on your budgets, balance it how you will. I would much rather have one campaign on a decent budget than 3 campaigns on minor budgets. Now, for those of you who have done LinkedIn ads before, you might have heard of maximum delivery and manual bidding. This can be a bit complex, but just a brief overview here. Maximum delivery is the default that LinkedIn will revert to. So this is billing you on an impression basis, so your ad appears somewhere and it bills you on that impression. It's much easier to start here, especially if you're starting out with, revolutionizing your ads on LinkedIn. I would recommend starting with maximum delivery, because this gives you an idea of what your cost per leads will be like and what your reach will be like. Again, you will then have a greater reach with this, but long term, you might want to think about manual bidding because there are higher costs associated with maximum delivery. So what is manual bidding? This is where it only builds your ads per click. So you only pay for people that are engaging with your ads. So in theory, it's more cost efficient and you have a limit on your maximum cost per lead here. But as I said, it is more complex and more difficult to arrange. So if you don't know what your target cost per lead should be, start out with maximum delivery, test, iterate on this, and then find out what you should be bidding through manual bidding. If you have any questions on that, come see me at the end and I'll be happy to help. Those are projects. So now, I'm sure what you're all here for is seeing the adverts up close. I'm going to show you what our adverts look like, but how do you make an effective advert? 3 things you need to think about. Your content ads should always demonstrate value, so you need to give them something for them to complete the form. If you're just going, buy our product, you're not going to get a good conversion. Second thing, you're stealing attention. You are literally stealing attention from LinkedIn. So people are scrolling through, they're not necessarily there to say, oh, I'm here for some company to sell to me. They're on there because either they're bored on a loo or they're looking for something valuable. So you want to steal their attention. Finally, you want to be relevant. So the worst thing is if you have a really eye-catching ad and they look at it and it's not relevant to them at all and they just go, why am I looking at this, and scroll straight past. So always keep those 3 things in mind. However, don't just settle. If you find that you've got one thing that's really eye-catching or one thing that's really relevant, always be testing. So, for example, if you find a specific topic that works, great, focus on that topic, but don't forget to test other topics as well. You never know what will work until you test it. Now, who wants to see an ad? Here's one of my favourite ads. This is one that we launched about a month and a half ago. It's the second iteration of it, and it's currently at a $7 cost per lead. That's $7 per lead. So in the past, I want to say week or so, we spent $200 and got like 26 leads in the price. So really happy with this. Here are my main review of this ad. So first of all, at the top you'll see the text. It's a line and a little bit of the second line. Always stay above the fold. So you might see some LinkedIn ads, they say ... read more. If you have more copy there, that's another thing that will affect the action economy that I spoke about earlier. If someone's clicking on that read more, that's taking one click away from their capacity to then click further on. People aren't interested in you, so you need to make sure that it's easiest for them to read stuff. You can be really creative here because you don't want to waste space. You're going to scan that and you're going to go, okay, is this relevant to me? So if you just call out the main things, don't waste space here, it's much more likely to convert. The second thing is you want to show your working. So if you've got a valuable piece of content, how are they supposed to know it's valuable? Earlier, Liam did a talk where he showed a picture of some golden eggs as a creative. It doesn't work that well because it's pretty looking, but they don't see the value in it. So here you can see I've detailed just a snippet of what the content is detailing. Now you might have noticed, the more eagle-eyed of you, this is on lead gen versus demand marketing. If you're wondering about demand marketing versus lead gen, well, you're here for lead gen, but go to Cognism.com and find the blog to have a look at our demand marketing guide. So, when I say show you're working, be really clear about this as well. So quite often I find get benefit from keyword is a really good structure to do this. So for example here we called out that you can get more inbounds from demand marketing. This is, again, it's really clear, really concise. You can just go, I recognize that, sure, here's my details, and then they get the value they need. Finally, make every space relevant. So I see a lot of LinkedIn ads that put a load of work into the creative and then don't worry about the copy that's there because they just think, oh, that's not what's catching people's attention. I've seen so many tests work where I've just changed that little line at the bottom that says what the piece is. So here it's Revenue Focused Guide to Demand Marketing with a nice little lightning symbol on the end. You want to make sure that everything in your ad is relevant. If someone's scanning through that, they might see those words and be like, okay, yeah, this is what I want. If you really focus on what the ad is showing, you're much more likely to convert. So call out things like job functions, their ambitions, maybe their targets. The more stuff you can put here, relevant stuff you can put here, the more likely they'll be to convert. So, I'll stop talking this ad after this slide. Again, you look at this ad, what do you see? So you see the creative first. Their interest is decided in a fraction of a second. So they're scrolling through LinkedIn and they see lead gen versus demand marketing. We've got bright brand colors, but also we're calling out exactly something that we know is within their interests. So you want to be bold, but be clear at the same time. Again, they are just scrolling through in a fraction of a second. They go, that's a keyword I recognize. I'm going to give this another fraction of my attention. Then they might scan the top bit. Again, keywords. This doesn't need to be poetic. You just want to call out things they will recognize that they click through on the form. Finally, they might look at the bottom and they might review it. So you want to remind them why they're here, why they're going to click through, why they want this piece of content. So again, customize every space you can and test as well. Had enough of ads? What's up? There's one more. So, again, is it attention grabbing? You want to make sure your ads are grabbing people's attention, stealing it off LinkedIn and going, this is relevant. Is it worth my time? Call out the things they want. Finally, is it relevant? You know, are people going to actually want to look at this? Are they going to give you their details, have that transaction if it's not relevant to them? Now, if you want to see more ads, you can always go look at Cognism page. So you can click through onto posts and then click onto ads, and you can see all of the ads that we're running. But this also means you can go have a snoop at your competitors. So I love doing this because I'm really good at ads and I like just gloating because I can see our competitors' ads aren't as good. But you can also go see what kind of keywords, phrasing they're using, and use that to inform not only your ads, but the rest of your product strategy as well. So, I've spoken a lot about ads, you've seen some of the ads, now let's talk about my favourite bit. Measuring, optimizing, and iterating. So, your key metrics. At this point, if I've thrown out the word CPL and you don't know what I mean, I'm really sorry, I should have put this at the start. But your CPL is your cost per lead. So, your cost per lead is just your bang for your buck. How much you're paying per lead. Again, you're here because you saw the $10 enterprise content leads. You want to set your own targets. So, be reasonable, think about what you want to be spending. You're not going to get $10 cost per lead at the start, so be a bit flexible with that. The second thing you want to look at is your click-through rate, or CTR. So when you're optimizing your ads, you're testing them, you're measuring them, look at the CTR, which basically is measured in percentage and shows what percentage of people are clicking through, are having a look at your ad, and this shows which ads are more promising when you're testing. Finally, you might have seen your CPC or your cost per click. Don't worry about this for lead gen. Your cost per click is much less relevant. So, phase one of me doing ads. I will launch some new content ads. So in a campaign, I will put 2 new creatives in at once, and I'll start optimizing them. How do I optimize them? I immediately will put the campaign onto what's called even rotation. So by default, LinkedIn will put your ads on a optimization structure that basically means they will put the most money towards your best performing ad. Obviously your new ad won't be your best performing ad, so you want to launch even rotation just to give it that kick up the arse and get it optimized. I would only, however, do this for a maximum of 2 days, because after this time you're just spending money on ads that might not be working. It depends on your budget as well, but generally 2 days is a good ballpark figure. After that point, you then want to compare your ad performance. So those 2 ads that I just launched, they've been spending money for 2 days. How are they doing? How are they compared to the rest of the ads in this campaign? You then want to look at your cost per leads and prioritize the lowest ones generally. Now, that's a lot in phase one. We're not done. In phase two, you want to optimize. So, every time you've got some top performers, think about why they're working like how they are. Yeah. So think about the common traits you can see there. What call to actions are working, what copy is working, what keywords are being called out that are then causing more people to convert. You want to then create new ads for the same piece of content with these experiments in them. So again, the ads I showed you earlier, they weren't first generation ones. They were second, third, fourth, fifth generation ads. I've gone, that's not good enough, I want to do another one. Then you want to test these new variants again against the original ads. So you'll measure your cost per leads and your click-through rates to determine which ones rank better. Then we move into phase three, iterate. This is basically don't stop, right? You'll hear a lot of marketers say, oh, don't set and forget or launch and leave. And what they mean by that is, you get your ads up and then you hope they're doing well and you leave. But one thing that marketers are also really guilty of is setting their ads live and checking in on them and being like, oh, I'm doing a great job, but not continuously experimenting or iterating on them. The only way I got to my $10 cost per lead for these enterprise ads is by always being like, can I do this better? Can I learn something new? Can I implement something new to change my ads for the better? I think I could even do better than my $7 cost per lead. Hopefully we'll see that in the next few months as I keep learning, keep taking that data from both the top performers and the poor performers and deploying that within my creatives. So here you can see one ad here. This is a 6th generation ad. That means there have been 6 different versions of this ad during my experiments. Here you can see I've called out sales leaders I've done that in a bunch of ads and it's worked really well. I've also got these 5 bubbles here. You've probably heard of the Power 5, but we tried this in a bunch of ads and people liked seeing a tease of the content. And basically it works really well. I won't bore you to death with the details here, but it's just an example of how well your ad can perform when you learn from your previous, not mistakes, but your previous tests, and implement those learnings in your current ads. So, key takeaways, or specifically what I want you to do after watching this. So, maybe your existing campaigns, I want to make sure first of all you're utilising lead gen forms. There's so much potential here. You can test it for yourself and see the results, but try and use lead gen forms when you're doing lead gen. Then, try and think about expanding your audiences. Update your job titles, see if you're missing out on anything. Also, check out your industries. Are you wasting money on industries that are maybe your tier 2, tier 3, or your amber or red, depending on what system you use? Then please disable LinkedIn Audience Network, because in my experience it doesn't work that well. Then you want to also consider adding external data to LinkedIn. Maybe this is your, as I mentioned, the closed lost opportunities, or maybe it's external data from a data vendor. You can do some of these to improve your matched audiences rate and also target specific accounts with LinkedIn. Finally, test. So again, if you've got ads that are running, campaigns that are pretty successful, don't stop there. Keep testing, learn from those that fail, and cherish the ones that succeed. But what if you want to do something new? So, I want you to think about, with new campaigns, maybe breaking down your lead gen by a greater function or an interest, and tailor the ads to fit that user. So what if, instead of just targeting all of marketing, you're now thinking about a specific marketing leader, how they can help the rest of their business? It depends on your audience, your market demographics, but really think about that and hone in on what they want to see. At the same time, think about a tech campaign, an industry campaign. For example, a tech campaign that I run at Cognism. So you want to think about your ideal industry, what they want to see, how they can benefit from your stuff, and build a campaign around it with dedicated content, dedicated creatives, dedicated copy, specifically tailored to that audience. Finally, you might think about doing a campaign like a bottom of the funnel campaign. This is where you retarget contacts within your ideal customer profile with content to educate them, engage them, and convert them low down the funnel. Maybe this is people who have already downloaded content from you in the past. Maybe this is from, again, an external data list. Think about how you can bring those people in with bottom of funnel content to then convert them down the funnel. I'm almost done. But first of all, finally, some final thoughts. Again, you control the narrative. Someone is giving you budget. Make sure you're controlling the narrative and telling them the story they want to see. Celebrate your wins, but also show the value of your losses. There's never a bad thing about having an ad that didn't perform because you know that something didn't work, and that is really valuable data. Second of all, you set your targets. So be ambitious by all means. Think, I want to get that $10 cost per lead, but it took me 3 months to get to this point where we had a semi-stable cost per lead across some of our ads. Be reasonable. Set your own targets. Measure it over time. If it gets to the point where you're like, I'm doing great, then set yourself a new target. Again, when I think about ads in other regions, sometimes I will change my cost per lead targets based on how well we're doing in that region. Third of all, always think user first. Your ads have a user. Think about how they're clicking on it. Think about when they're reading past it, what they scan, what they see first. Optimize that journey. And finally, invest in some new tailored content. As I mentioned, you can do specific campaigns to target industry or job titles. Create content that really targets them and gives them what they want to see. You'll then see, at least from my tests, that more people convert because of really specific, dedicated content. So that brings us to the end. Any questions? Oh, she also mentioned. We have a question. Yeah. Yeah, so we have used a lot of statistics as well. So generally, when we create ads for a piece of content, we'll look for that piece of content and see if there's something really easy we can pull out. And again, a statistic is valuable because it's something really quick and easy that shows value. So it's something concrete. You're scrolling through, you're going to see so many ads that are saying like, oh, improve your meetings, book more revenue or whatever. If you can say a concrete thing, for example, we have ads that say like, oh, increase your inbound revenue by this much by using this strategy. Quite often we'll do it based on our own story. You'll see that more people are likely to convert because they make those stories real. And what's your second question? On lookalike, yes, we have done lookalike audience in the past. I think in its current iteration it is limited. We've done a lot of lookalike audiences, but generally we've had much more success when we've done external data lists and implemented them into LinkedIn. But again, we're quite lucky to have access to Cognism's data now. So, no worries. Any other questions? If not, I should also mention that we're hiring. So we have these 4 roles open at the moment. If you're interested, please head over to cognism.com and come join my team. Thank you.